censorship and Ofcom and so on. And on Wednesday this week, Ofcom held a day-long seminar to explain the regulations which platforms are going to have to comply with in order to meet their obligations under the Online Safety Act for the so-called protection of children. I'll explain why I say so-called in a second. Now, Ofcom refused to give any specific guidance on how platforms should implement the regime that they want to see. They said that this is on the basis that if they give specific advice, it may restrict their ability to take enforcement action later on. So it's up to the platforms to interpret the extremely complex and vaguely defined requirements and to impose a regime which Ofcom will find acceptable. I have to say it was pretty clear from the Q&A sessions that some of the pretty big platforms that were on that were really struggling with this whole thing. So I would suggest that the inevitable outcome of this is that platforms will err on the side of caution, and that's particularly bearing in mind the potential penalties. Now, many will say that this is good. Children should be protected. And of course, the second part of that is true. But the way this is being done won't protect children, and we'll discuss that in a minute. Instead, it's going to result in many more topic areas falling below the censorship threshold. Now, let's just have a look at the main categories of content which Ofcom says children should not be exposed to. The first is what they call primary priority content, or PPC, and this includes content related to suicide, self-harm, eating disorders, pornography, and Ofcom says that children should be blocked from seeing any of this content. The second is what they're calling priority content, and that includes content which they call abuse and hate, undefined, bullying and violent content, and content related to harmful substances and dangerous stunts. And then they have what they call non-designated content. This is just a fantastic term because they define non-designated content as content that isn't considered primary content or priority content, but still presents, quotes, a material risk of significant harm to an appreciable number of children in the UK. In other words, everything else, because it's not defined any better than that. It's basically, if it's not the first category, it's not the second category, then it's this. So no definition of any meaningful kind. So unsurprisingly, the main technique that Ofcom, or at least unsurprisingly, if you've been paying attention to the UK column anyway, the main technique that Ofcom is putting forward for preventing children accessing these types of content is what they call highly effective age assurance. Now, the types of technologies which they consider highly effective are listed on the right-hand side of the slide here. So we've got credit card checks, open banking, which allows consumers and businesses to securely share the financial data with third-party service providers through an application programming interface, photo ID matching, facial age estimation, mobile network operator age checks. Digital ID is another option, and email-based age estimations. These are all the options that they seem to be putting on the table at the moment as being services or systems that they would find acceptable for age verification. They say that this age verification will need to take place within the remit of the Data Protection Act. But of course, the data protection regime is about to be massively relaxed with new legislation that's on its way through Parliament at the moment. So all the focus from Ofcom was on verifying that someone is over the age of verifying that someone is over the age of 18 if they want to access certain content. At no point did they comment on any requirement to make sure that someone was under the age of 18 for access to a site which is aimed specifically at children. And that seemed like a pretty serious item missing there. And just one final point on this. Ofcom began the day with a little propaganda video. So let's just have a look at it.
My son's into gaming and football, so why are you showing him content that tells him to hate and mistreat women?
When my little boy is safe at home, why are strangers asking him for topless photos?
Why did you let people share nudes of my 14-year-old daughter? What if it was your daughter?
Why is my daughter being targeted with clips of kids in our area being violently attacked?
Why are you allowing your platform to be a playground for paedophiles to groom children?
My teenage daughter's hair fell out because she was bullied on your platform.
How can you let dealers push drugs to my 14-year-old on your site?
How can you let my child that is 14 years old see photos of child pornography?
You allowing your platform exposed to suicide content being whatever messages and grounds that you prefer.
So at no point in the discussion was there any suggestion that parents might have a role in keeping their children safe. There's nothing about any kinds of tools to enable parents to make decisions about what is or what is not appropriate content for their children to see. It's just about moving these decisions to the platforms and to imposing some kind of digital ID. So this isn't about keeping children safe. It's only about normalizing state-enabled content control and digital identity. That's the argument that I'm putting forward here anyway. I don't know if you got any thoughts on this, Patrick.
Well, you're just making, Mike, I think a classic utilitarian argument. If the problem is, all of these so-called risks to children and so forth, how can you impose a broad censorship regime that covers adults in order to allegedly protect children? It doesn't even stand up to basic common sense from a classic English liberal argument, and that's how our whole legal system has been built on top of. So why not, let's say, I got a radical idea, why not restrict access to smartphones for children below the age of 15? If this is going to be a big problem, can't you give them a Nokia banana and be done with it? And when they get it home, the parents can be responsible while they're at home under parental supervision. There is no perfect system. Children will get drugs pushed on them on their way to school, in the bathrooms at school. Okay, and then what? Should we shut the school down? Should we shut the schools down and have the kids homeschooled or in some kind of 6 foot by 6 foot government kind of cell to learn or something? It's ridiculous once you go down this road.
Absolutely. And I mean, the fight between YouTube and the YouTube download applications, the fight between the big corporate media companies and piracy demonstrates that these types of approaches don't work. They never have worked in the past, and they're not going to work in the future. But in a related topic,